Hello, welcome to Uptown Tonight. It is November 30th of 2022. Kind of more of a somber one we're going to have tonight, basically in the remembrance of Chris Hanson out there. And I have a bunch of his old bandmates that I'm sure that have some pretty interesting stories that we can talk about and all that. Because I'd like to think I was on Chris Hanson's inner circle, but I got a feeling that wasn't very exclusive. At least with that, the thousands of people I'm sure that he's touched in his lifetime, and just how he left this earth so quickly and everything else. So I'm just happy that we can all be here to at least talk about him, celebrate him a little bit. But I'm your host, Mr. Wayne Stollenfacher, or Discount Tom Cruise. Some people call me Tom Brady. I've been Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. I don't know. People get weird. They get weird out there. But we are out here with Russ Pfaff and Ed Schwind, and Mike Saunders are going to be joining us all tonight. So we're going to hopefully have some good laughs and everything else, and hopefully not so much on the crying side. But, things are what it is. Things are what it is. So we just got to tell you out there, remember to support our troops. And that's old ZB's there. I'm sure you heard him in the background. So I kept him out back because he's about 120 pounds of pure fury, and he's friendly, but he's really excitable. Well, I'm going to get started here just because Elizabeth Hanson wanted me to say a few things before we even got started tonight, and basically just wanted to make sure that our viewers knew about Chris and just where he came from. So he was born in Incheon. Is that how you say it?
Incheon.
Incheon. Okay, so that's why they're here. South Korea, and was in an orphanage there. When his parents, Deb and Pete Hanson, adopted him. Worked with the Holt International to adopt him. Chris had musical talent from a young age, and we watched him as he excelled in music. He played piano by ear and taught himself to play and perform the entire part of November Rain by ear. I did not know that, but I believe it. He was a classical musician, music mind, and supported me in my music as I supported him. Many years for Christmas, he would get me a jazz CD, so I would just learn more about the art. She just wanted me to share that all with you. And then something about a Guns N' Roses concert that I don't know if you guys know anything about. It was brought up after the service, but I'm a little interested in that if you guys have any information on that. But I'm going to get started just telling how I met Chris. And basically, it was at the Gold Star Marching Band. I was working with the drum line at the time, and he was a student. Did he just get his bachelor's degree? I cannot remember. Or did he get?
He never did.
He never got his degree.
He never graduated.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He majored in time and space.
And all the above. Yeah, so he was there, and it was, I don't know if it was one of the first student-led shows, but it was one of the, I don't know, it was a student-led show that I was first involved with, and it was a full Eagles show. And since I was the drumline guy, he asked me to write the drumline parts. Now, writing drumline parts to Eagles, kind of a challenge. I'm not going to lie, it was kind of a challenge. But we got through it and we made it happen. That's where I got to know him, at least at first. And I don't know, he always seemed like just the nicest guy, just the person that you just, as soon as you talked to him, you felt like a brother. And that's how I met him. How'd you guys meet him? Why don't you go first?
I guess I'll start out.
Okay.
So I met Chris back in high school. He moved to Minot, I'm not sure, 7th, 8th grade, somewhere around there. He was at Jim Hill. I was at Ramstead, the better school, thank you very much.
There you go.
And we knew each other through music, and then I was a year ahead of him in school, so when I would have been in 10th grade, he was in 9th grade at Central, and we played in the jazz bands together there. Played in jazz bands together again at the Magic City campus. So I knew him from jazz band, from concert band, brass quintets, all that kind of stuff. And then on after that, continuing on after high school through the jazz festivals that he put on. And
so you followed him out to the east side?
Yeah.
How did that all come together?
Well, I was in a relationship that went south. And
like we all do.
I needed a geographic change, so I ended up coming down here to Fargo for a job. And I was at Fort Knox one night, and in walks Chris Hanson. And he's like, "Hey, what's up? how you doing? You know, I hadn't seen him probably like 8 years. But the thing is with Chris, it doesn't matter if you've seen him 8 minutes ago or 8 years later.
That's absolutely true.
He picks up exactly where you left off. And so he's like, hey, how's it going? How's your parents? What's going on? We talked a bit, and he's like, you still playing trombone? And I was like, nah, yeah, I'd like to. And he's like, well, I got this band. Helena HandBasket. You interested in playing? I was like, sure. No idea what I was getting into. It was a trip. I'll say that much. It's been a trip.
What year would that have been?
I believe
estimation circa
2008. I believe 2008 when I first showed up, because I believe you guys stopped using the patents pending name the end of 2007, the New Year's Eve.
That's
gig.
correct.
Yeah, so I came in 2008. Yeah.
All right, came out to the east side. Russ, how'd you meet him?
I met him at NDSU, either 2000 or 2001. I don't remember exactly. Whenever he showed up, or I showed up. I showed up there in 2000. I don't know if he was there yet or not, or if he came that spring or whatever. But yeah, and we met in jazz ensemble, that I somehow eked my way into as an architecture major, beating out senior music major percussionists. And not making any friends in the percussion department, but he invited me to the jazz festival, which was in Minot, I believe, at that time.
Is that where that started all?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I was looking at that, I was like 95, like, wow. I graduated in 94.
Same.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
Yeah, he invited me to that, and then just started hanging out all the time. And then either shortly after or kind of during that same period started Patents Pending, 2001-ish. And then he and I shared the stage continuously until we quit in 2018. So I also lived with them for a while, so I got to see a completely different side.
Yeah,
you lived with them for a while too. But yeah, it's
we'll get back to that stuff.
Yeah.
Ed.
So I met Chris at International Music Camp in, I want to say 1993, probably the first time. And we played in the Honor Jazz Band in the summer of 94. And then he started organizing some things already back then in high school. He had all of the kind of jazz all-stars from music camp, even guys from Winnipeg, come down to Minot just to hang out and play some jazz. And we just did a combo gig. I can't even remember where it would have been, just somewhere in Minot. I don't even remember if it was on the street corner or in a coffee shop or a park or what, but he just wanted to hang out, play a little bit, and he kind of would. There was a little bit of competition throughout. I was from Bismarck. He was from Minot, and there was kind of a little bit of competition between the best players from the big cities and the jazz bands about who's going to get best soloist at the University of Mary Jazz Festival and stuff like that and stuff. But Chris could see past all that stuff. He's like, what we need to do is get all these guys together in the same room and play together. And so he did that, and we did it in the summers, and we did it again in Valley City there was a guy, Ben Walland, who was percussionist, and he did his senior recital, and they didn't do All-State Jazz Band that year, and so we kind of made our own and did Ben Walland's senior recital, and then we came to Fargo and played a gig at the Frisky Goat.
Oh, the
coffee
Frisky
shop.
Goat! Oh my gosh!
Now known as Leisure Laundry.
Yes, it is.
And Chris always did his laundry at that one. I think because of that, he's like, remember it was the Frisky Goat.
How did he organize all that from that side of the state to the Frisky Goat?
Right? And that's like before cell phones and texting and really the internet all that much. Yeah.
Like his organizational skills, I don't know where they were, just innate. They were just there from the very first jazz. And the thing was, it wasn't just his organizational skills, it was his networking skills. Like, he was bringing in people to play parts that, like, no one had ever heard of. Like, someone from some little town somewhere is a great sax player, and they come in, we got a trumpet player from here. The people I met, through jazz because of Chris were from all over the place. Definitely some of the Winnipeg people. And what he did is he had friends, and he talked to his friends and say, do you know anyone that plays blah? I'm like, oh yeah, I know Tom. And now we got Tom in the band. So it wasn't just his organizational, that networking skill that he had from the very beginning, really.
Well, I think it's just part of his personality that as soon as you do meet him, he just it feels right. I mean, he doesn't have any kind of negative sort of pushback on you at all, whatever else. And I don't know. I know I've made a few enemies in the past. I don't think Chris ever could. I don't think he, even if he tried. That's at least in my humble opinion on that.
If he did, it wasn't for very long. And they'd figure it out. That's because I don't think he's the kind of guy that would tolerate knowing somebody out there didn't like him.
That's very true.
He'd want to fix it.
Yeah.
So,
and I can tell you, if someone didn't like Chris, they weren't going to be around for very long. Not because we stopped doing that. We won't talk about that for a second. But okay. If someone didn't like Chris, I think it's safe to say that it would have been someone that none of the people that were around Chris really liked, because of the kind of people that Chris attracted around him. I made this post last night. Some of you guys read it, but there's this preacher that basically said that you can judge the character of a man by the by the people whose affection he seeks. So basically, you can judge a man by who he surrounds himself with, and the people that Chris surrounded himself with.
The fact that he hung out with you doesn't speak very highly of him.
I was trying
undermining your own.
I was trying to be nice here, but
it wouldn't really be a real.
You got a lighter?
Wow,
not tonight.
It's not yet.
Yeah. Wouldn't be a real Helena HandBasket show if I didn't make fun of Mike. So.
This is true. This is very true.
That's beautiful. No, well, I love that. It's just all about him, but I can't remember which way we were going with that.
So these guys have mentioned Jazz a couple times. I don't think we really talked about where that started, because most everybody kind of knows, but he started it as a farewell party for himself when he joined the Army. And before he left for boot camp,
a farewell party for himself.
Yeah.
Just hanging out with some buddies and playing some jazz music.
Yeah.
Out in the public.
Yep. And he couldn't just hang out. He's like, let's put on a show and let's do it at a theater and let's do it for real.
Man.
And so.
And this is out of high school, right?
Yeah. He had graduated from high school, joined the Army, was leaving for boot camp, and he said, let's do a show. And then everybody had such a good time. They were calling him saying, when you come home next summer, let's do it again. And let's do it again. And so he kept doing it all the way through. When he was in the Army, he'd come home on leave. And can you imagine trying to plan a jazz festival? And it wasn't just like a band thing. It was like the jazz band. It was a combo. It was a jazz choir. And he would get guest artists or guest conductors to come in, all from Texas.
I can't even get my kid to come back and leave, much less,
and also,
organizing anything.
If you ever attended one, you saw the show. But what you didn't see was the 2 days of rehearsal at multiple locations, Chris planning meals, just like an incredible amount of organization and planning that went into all of those.
I mean, a lot of it was just
absolutely incredible.
Well, and he had to borrow music stands and chairs and all the stuff like that for putting it together.
And it was, he did it without ever being here. He did it all
remotely,
all from Texas, just at his base. And he, I'm not kidding you, the lodging, where do people stay? Not just show up and play jazz, but okay, where do we put all these people? Start calling up the friends, talking to their moms. Hey, Mackay, can we put a bunch of people in your basement? Or, whoever, put people on couches, arrange the meals. And I want to point out, it's jazz. We've been saying, we've kind of been unclear about that. But jazz, because Chris swore that was the original spelling of jazz. And so it was the Jazz Festival.
Interesting. Well, I love that.
Thanks, Cliff.
Quite a bit. Let's get to living with Chris. I am fairly curious. Then I was just hanging out with him back in the NDSU days. You can see that there was I'm not going to say a darker side, but you can tell that there was more of a a party side to him that I don't think I really got to know, just because I was kind of like some kind of faculty type of person at that point. So I didn't really get to hang out with them or with you guys that much, at least in that respect. So who wants to go first about living with?
I lived with him earlier than Russ. I lived in the party house that was kind of the NDSU music department go-to hangout. Chris always was putting together parties, and
that's what I hear.
It's
Chris putting together just parties,
right? Yeah. So I mean, he just wanted the party at his place, and he's like, I don't have to drive then, right? And if all the girls come over, cool, or whatever. But, yeah.
So did the parties also have agendas?
Probably, but we didn't know about them.
7:37, Eddie shows up.
Party started at 6.
Oh,
Chris and I were we were pretty good as roommates. We also lived with Tim Stein. He was a little more interesting. He liked to stay up in his room. He'd come down. He'd be like, "Oh, you made some food," and he'd eat some, and then he'd wash his dish and put it away, and then he'd go back upstairs, and Chris and I would be like, "Well, I guess we bought groceries. And we did the cooking, so I guess we'll clean up." But anyway,
okay.
But
my favorite story from like and that same plane is the time that Tim made Chris breakfast.
right.
Like full breakfast, eggs, hash browns, bacon. And Chris comes down and Tim's like, "Hey man, I made you breakfast." And Chris is like, "This is awesome." And then he eats it, and like kind of like as he's eating it, he realizes that he's eating his own groceries. So like Tim cooked it.
Where this is going.
But Chris paid for all the food.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how. That's probably a lot of things in that house.
Yeah. He just paid for everything and then just didn't say anything about it, or
that's kind of his nature too.
Yeah,
sounds about right.
Okay.
Somebody said at some point over the last few days how he used to. We found out about this all kind of at the same time, but he would book gigs that paid bad, and knowing that there may be some people in the band that would say no to the gig if they knew they were only going to get $40.
Gotcha,
he would either not take pay or he would add on top.
Just throw in his own cash.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah.
And to think we did a gig for $7.
$7 each.
Well,
Yeah.
You got 8.
I got 8.
That
I booked
happens
it.
every once in a while.
Right. My biggest memory from living with Chris was he would fall asleep all the time playing Super Nintendo.
Fall asleep like at the couch, or
Yeah, like he'd fall asleep with the controller in his hand, and like you'd come back and he's playing Mario Kart, and Koopa Troopa's in the corner going dunk 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 against the wall, and the timer's like maxed out at 9999, or it's 4th and 99, and he's like falling asleep and playing Madden, and he just like fake punt pass touchdown.
So would this be like in the wee hours of the morning, or is this just kind of random?
Yeah, it was kind of, we'd come home from the bar and he'd been asleep for a while already. Yeah.
So was he much of a bar guy? Did he go out and just hang out with you guys there, or is that he just wanted the parties at home?
For quite a while, like pretty much all of us in Helena HandBasket would go to Lauerman's. That was like our spot. We were there 4 or 5 times a week, and that's not even exaggerating.
Yeah. Well, he worked nights for a long time too, because
Yep.
he worked at, night auditor at hotels and whatnot. But
really? He did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, a couple different hotels for a while.
I did not know that.
I think he liked doing that because he would go like practice, like after he was done doing the audit, he'd like I don't know if he had his trombone along or if he had a keyboard or something, but like, or if he was writing charts or something. But I don't think that Chris ever had a job that I know of that he couldn't practice music while at work, because he worked, I think he did the night auditor thing, and then he worked at the Army band.
Yep.
And so he would do his daily work, and then he'd go practice for a while, and then he'd come back, and then he'd do a little bit more work, and then he'd go write a horn chart for our band or something. And then later when he worked at the church, same deal. Half of his job was doing the music at the church too. So yeah, I don't know that he ever had a job that, I don't know if he could have had a job that he couldn't just like bust his horn out and go practice for 30 minutes.
Split time like that, yeah.
I can believe it.
That's excellent. Excellent. Well, I got to get here to our damn brickies little thing we got going here. So basically what we have is our damn brickies beard challenge for No Shave November. If you noticed, this is the longest and best beard I've ever had in my entire life, and it's all because of this guy.
Inspired by this year's No Shave November, we proudly bring you Dan Bricky's epic battle of the...
All right, so you got 4 to choose from this week, and it's the final week of the No Shade November Dan Bricky's Epic Beard Challenge. Now, I see a couple of good beards in here that probably should have been in on the challenge.
Wasn't aware of the challenge.
So out there in the chats or on the comments, whatever else, you got A, B, C, or D. Choose your one. Last week again, edged out just by 1. Dan wins one more time, so he is going 3 for 3. Someone's got to beat him out.
I feel like this is rigged, but I
Rigged?
mean, Dan's beard is clearly the best in this.
What are you talking about? I don't know about that, but there we go. So that's Dan Bricky's. But let's get to more on like Helena HandBasket type things. So while you guys were playing, what were some of the antics that would happen out there? Was he all business or?
Oh, no.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
There's
So was he like the whole? I'm not gonna say leader of the entire group, but was he kind of like the person that got everything rolling all the time?
Well, I mean, he's the one, other than when Russ booked some early on when I was in, like he handled the logistics. Like he was the contact person, so people would reach out. He would arrange getting that gig booked. When we did weddings, he would do, there's a lot of back and forth with that. And we would end up early on, we offered to do 3 charts, learn 3 charts per wedding or something like that, or at least 1. So we would learn new charts. He'd be writing those charts. And then as it got closer, figuring out who's riding with who, and then you would get the itinerary. And the itinerary would say,
I love that.
Who was leaving from where, who was riding with who, at what time, arriving here. Like, it had every little thing. If it was a wedding thing where we had to duck out after we set up, then like, okay, now we're going to go eat here. And it was... Yeah,
That's brilliant.
ran
How many
that.
people do you have in that band, at least average-wise?
It was 8 plus a sound guy.
9 people.
Yeah.
You had to roll all that to wherever you're going. Wow.
Yep.
That takes some organization right there. But how was he like in the back then? It was like you guys sound checked and then you just sat around, or what happened?
And we were always goofing around. There was always a joke, and we were always making fun of each other. And you know,
We
if
have
nobody
to
was
do
making
that.
fun of somebody else,
Mostly
Chris was-
making fun of Chris.
Yeah, pretty
unfortunately.
much.
What?
And if we weren't doing it, he was like making fun of his Asianness or the size of his head.
Self-deprecating humor has come up multiple times in the last couple of weeks here. Yeah, that was always fun.
He was fun on stage too. Like, there was a picture on the forum article where it's like him with the bass, and he is just smiling, and he's looking at somebody else, and you know that's the kind of player he was. Like, he would do his thing, but he was listening to you. He wanted to hear. Like, he was loving that thing that was going on the other side of the stage. He was digging that solo, or he was digging that groove that was happening. And I mean, he was just such a fan of the rest of us. You know, it's so fun to play with somebody when they love what you're doing on stage.
Oh, precisely, yes.
Yeah.
So many times, you know, after the end of a set break or at the end of the night, it's like, oh, I really like that thing you did on whatever song. Like he called out something I did, so he was clearly listening, not just looking over and being like, yeah. And one thing I loved about, like, he was a good bass player, you know, like he was solid, but when he would screw up, like his reaction to it, like there's another picture that was going around on Facebook where you can see him, he's doing this thing like he's gonna slap himself, and I know that right after that Russ says he dropped an F-bomb just loudly.
Yeah, that's a really, I love that picture. It's unfortunate that a lot of the versions of it that are going around right now are cropped.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Because it like the original picture, you can see my face in the lower right corner, and I'm just laughing my ass off. Because we were playing Take On Me at Dempsey's. It was our last show ever.
Oh, wow, okay.
And he usually played either a 5 or 6 string bass. So he had that low, whatever it is, the low string.
Okay. Yeah.
And there's a point in Take On Me where he just would hammer that string to play that lowest note. And he did that on a 4th string.
But it was just an E.
So it was a 4th off. And it was the loudest wrong note I think I've ever heard. And, you know, I'm running the in-ears, and I got the bass cranked in there so we can stay locked in, right? And I hear him do that, and I see his reaction instantly, and I'm like looking at him in that picture just laughing. And he was so mad about that. I love giving him crap about that for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
Every time that picture would pop up, tag him in it again.
You know, he would cue us the horns for when we come in after a solo or something. He'd look over, and so in "Give Me Some Lovin'," there's this spot that Josh Maynard would always just play this little riff that would be the signal that the horns are coming back in with that line. And we had a sub playing with us. I think it was Dan Miller playing with us, and Dan's doing his thing, but he doesn't know that he needs to do that thing. So we're just all over here bopping, doing whatever, and none of us play. And Chris just looks at us like,
Yep,
what are you doing?
Look. We all know the look, man.
Yeah, he was fun. He was a lot of fun.
What was one of the best stories you had with him on stage, besides missing the note on Take On Me?
There's so many.
Exactly. There's some good ones.
We played a wedding in Worthington.
Okay, this has got to be good.
It's for some friends of the band and actually a former band member. And there was a lot of alcohol available. And at some point in the show, Chris decided it would be a good idea to do a scissor kick off the subs.
What?
And ended up injuring his leg pretty bad. Not like broken, but he was kind of hobbled.
Yeah, I
for a
think he
while.
sprained his knee a pretty good one.
Yeah.
He was limping for a while.
And like I remember watching him do it, just like it's like 4 feet up. Like I wouldn't do that.
We were probably like, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we probably all thought it was great at the time, but yeah, that's one that always sticks out in my head. Just what awful decision making that was.
I just can't picture it. I cannot picture that at all.
It wasn't the best scissor kick,
Well,
but
you can still identify
it. A for effort.
I think my favorite ones just revolved around Chris's reactions to things that were happening. And like Eddie was talking about earlier, like when you were playing, like he's looking over and he's appreciating what you're doing, you know.
Yep.
Even if no one else in the entire place is paying attention to what you're doing, Chris is paying attention to what you're doing. Unfortunately, sometimes Chris is paying attention to what you're doing. So then that look like, what in the hell are you doing, Mike? Like, that's an interesting choice. And those reactions that he had great facial reactions. And we're playing at the VFW in West Fargo. And I don't know, we're supposed to play Chicken Fried or Wagon Wheel. They're the same song. But they're not. And everyone's on deck to do one of them, and I started playing the other one, and I'm just going along like I don't even know what's going on. And Chris is looking at me, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. And Russ is yelling to Bill like, "We're doing Wagon Wheel, we're doing Wagon Wheel." And it wasn't until that point that I was like, oh, okay. And the look on just like confusion, first confusion, and then a little disgust, and then just. It was the best.
Like, I just thought you were getting that creative with it.
Yeah, it was always the best just watching him on stage and his reactions to what was going on.
So
it's fun to think back about kind of how we evolved as a band and as individual musicians too, because when I remember in the early days, back when it was Patents Pending, we used to do Rocket Man, and Chris sang it, and Al just was merciless. He's like, "Man, you sound like Bob Dylan when you sing Pack My Bag Last Night, Pre-Flight." Like I think we quit doing that song just because we were too merciless, and he's like, I'm sick of getting made fun of, so we're not going to do that anymore. But I mean, he's a good singer, you know.
He is.
I mean,
yes, he is.
Listen to the stuff that he was posting over the last year, like the church band stuff. I mean, he's a really good singer, and you know. I guess you do something for long enough, eventually you figure it out. But
Yeah, like noticing, like, Deanne's listening, she'll love this, Sweet Home Alabama. But I think you told him, you know, he was
she literally
She
just
hates that
texted.
song so much.
I don't know who he was trying to sing it like, but you basically, like, don't try to sing it like whoever, just do it yourself.
Yeah.
And that change, and like and his singing over the years, like definitely seeing that progression of him getting better and better and more comfortable at it, and just watching the rest of the band. You know, I remember first set used to be kind of rough. We'd show up and there'd be 3 people in the bar, and we weren't that jazzed to be there because there's only 3 people there. Like, it's going to be good second set, but we wouldn't have the energy. And then at some point, Eddie's like, guys, we need to bring it from note 1. You know, if we bring it from note 1, people will show up. And Eddie just told straight up, this is what we need to do. And we're like, yeah, you're right. Let's do that. And we started doing that, and it would be first set, and the people who ducked their head in and see where we're going on, we're like, oh, snap, there's a band playing. Let's check this out. And then pretty soon we had a bump in first set, you know.
Yeah.
And that evolution of the band individually as musicians and then collectively as a unit, you know, I'm just so grateful to have been a part of that. Like, I've never been in a band before, and so I don't have anything to gauge it against. But Bill Dablo has been in bands for 50 years. He's been in a lot of bands, and he said the same thing. I've never been a part of something like this. So I just feel really privileged that, you know, I ran into Chris in 2008. He's like, hey, what's up? What are you doing?
I think another key realization that was an evolution for us as a band was realizing that the crowd doesn't care about our inside jokes. Because we used to play a tune, the first thing we do is like, look at each other. It was like, and then we'd say something stupid, and people are like, you know,
Wow.
are you going to play music, or are we going to listen to you guys BS for, like, you know, a whole minute? That's an eternity of silence.
Yes.
Until you hear Eddie yelling from the corner, less talk, more rock.
Less talky, more rocky.
Yeah, and I think that's just to continue talking about Helena. That's kind of what evolved. What Chris's favorite part of the show was that meat of the second set, where he had kind of
He
created this, like, it was like 6 or 7 tunes long that segued, and it always kind of changed. Like, we would swap things in and out, but it was just the middle of the second set when everybody in the crowd is ready to go, right?
Yep.
Just
And
nonstop music.
just no talking, just segues and little interludes, and we had, you know, Mike rapping. You know, like just it's, and that's what Helena HandBasket was just like, what are they doing? You know, just keeping it
awesome.
keeping it ridiculous the whole show. And that's kind of like when we had the discussion to change from Pat Spending to Helena HandBasket. That was the idea. Like, let's just make a party band. We're not trying to be a horn band or a funk band or anything. We just wanted to, like, have fun on stage and play ridiculous stuff, and hopefully that translated to the crowd, and I think it did, which is why the band played for as long as it did.
You know, one thing, another one of those strengths that Chris had, like, I've been a DJ in the DJing, you know, weddings and dances and things like that.
God bless you.
And there's a flow, like, there's an art to it. You got to play the right stuff in the right order, and if you bring it up for too long, you got to slow it back down. And if you play things that are like a tritone apart, like weird things,
Transition,
it's weird. It needs to make sense, like not just this song, but how does this song relate to the next one? And that's something that Chris was really gifted at. Like, if I had put together a Helena HandBasket set, it would have been terrible. Like, it just would, everyone would have been looking at us like, what is wrong with you? But Chris, even if we were subbing stuff in, like, he knew where to put things, how to arrange it so that it had that ebb and flow all the way through the whole set. And people might not realize how important that is. Like, the audience member doesn't realize how important that is to their experience, but if they don't have it, they know. They're just like, this DJ sucks, or this band sucks. And
why doesn't it work?
And Chris had a gift. Like, I don't understand how he made that work the way he did. Just don't.
It just sounds like from the beginning, it just made sense to him. Just get it. We got Beasler on here. Chris's injury down in Worthington was a stress fracture, all in the name of rock. So
that was
Worth it.
It was Beasler's wedding. Yep.
Oh, was it?
Yep.
Oh man, there you go.
It's all his fault.
Well, cool. Well, with that said, I'm going to let you guys think about like some of the most epic times you've had with them, or the most ridiculous time you had with them, or just something all the way. But I got to get to the weekly report here. So, Cino in Michigan. Well, I'm heading downtown with the Front Street Tap Room, Vinyl and Vino tomorrow night, and open mic night with Travis Neros on Monday the 5th. Going to the Storie, I have open mic with Mark A. Belcher. That's some good stand-up for anyone looking to get their tight 2 minutes in. Tonight is the night to do that. And then on Friday and Saturday, having Sama Sidquay with Lily Meyer, and at Specs this weekend, twice as hard Friday and Saturday. 42nd Street Delta Hotel, David Pereira. I think it's a quartet that's playing. Don't quote me on that one, though. Okay, downtown we're at Dempsey's. We have open mic with Gina Powers, and I also just checked out and found out that Dan Brecky will be playing there on Friday as well. So on Friday, Dan Brecky will be at Dempsey's, not written in. Got the aquarium with all the greatest names. We got Big TJT, Ian, GTB. What's GTB stand for? It's on there twice. I don't get it. As Jazz and then GTB J-Mac, Coney AK, Kobe Tripp, Playboy Mickey, Rocco Toothbrush, Shoddy the Beam, Captain for No Reason, Recoup on Sound this Friday. And
that's all one show.
That's one show. So I'm guessing that's like DJ or EDM or something like that. And then we've got Colton J and others on Saturday. At Tailgaters, Karma's playing this weekend, Friday and Saturday, the 2nd and 3rd. And then the VFW and West Fargo Kicking Back Band hit stage on Saturday. We're going out of town, Yo and Minot Drive there Friday and Saturday. Laughing Sun Brewing Company in Bismarck, Mandan, our favorite brewing company out there. Never been there. As Nicole Morton on Thursday, and then Sugar Break on Friday the 2nd. Nirvana, that name, I haven't seen that name for over a year now, but Nirvana's back Saturday the 3rd. An open mic with Danny Savage next Tuesday the 6th. At the Shooting Star Casino, we got Vince Neil on Friday, and then back for more of the Mustang Lounge Friday and Saturday. And Ojaba Records in Grand Forks, we got Covalence, Daniel Knives, Daniel Flora, and Matt Fowler on Saturday the 3rd. Going uptown to Windbreak, we got Slamabama on Ladies' Night Thursday. Junk FM's back in the area Friday the 2nd. And some shitty cover band on Saturday the 3rd. And then we get up north to the Grand Forks at Southtown Porthouse. We got shitty cover band on Friday and 2 weeks notice on Saturday. At the Sanctuary, we got Josh Blue and Jeff Tice on Thursday, tomorrow night. And then at the Fargo Theater, we have The Moth, hosted by John Good. I'm not entirely sure what that's all about, but no, they're definitely have
They just tell stories.
Oh, is that all it is?
Yeah, it's from NPR.
Oh, okay. That's why we have you guys on here. I need the education.
That's
Thursday the 1st. And then Rick Schuler is a John Denver experience on Saturday the 3rd. And then we're going to the TAC. We have Emissary Echo, Perfectly Still versus Wolves in Tundra on Friday the 2nd. And the Downtown Acoustic Corner Wednesday, 2-night, we have Brianna and Lars at Murphy's Pub, a couple blocks from here. And then Rachel Nero at the Roundup Saloon. Tomorrow night, we have Mike Morris at the Midtown Tavern. On Friday, we have Terry Mackner and Rick Adams. Oh, Terry Mackner will be at Tailgaters. Rick Adams will be at Portertown Tavern. On Saturday the 3rd, Jim White, the Silver Spike, Mike Morris at the Silver Dollar in West Fargo. Dan Kaufman Duo at the Troll Lounge, and Kyle Toby at the Suns in Norway. And I believe that's all we got for this week. So that's this week's So here we go. Let's go back to you guys. And let's hear some really crazy stories about Chris. Not instead of scissor kicks. What else has that guy done?
Well, first, round of applause for you for making through that. I think you need a shot of Jameson.
I'll get one later. That's definitely welcome.
All right, who's got a story teed up? I'm still trying to think of a funny story.
Funny story, or maybe even just a cool story of Chris. Everyone's sitting around.
I'm just trying to think of like the most
blank.
ridiculous gigs that we've done. I mean, just either crammed on some tiny stage or we did a.
Well, that'd be interesting. 9 people.
We did this the county fair out in Center.
Oh yeah.
And they were having a tractor pull up at the top of the hill.
Nice.
And like we were
There was some
kind of making
pig wrestling
fun
too,
of it a
wasn't
little
there?
bit. Yeah, I mean, it was.
With pigs in there.
No.
Oh, that's a different county fair that James was telling me about.
But we were making fun of the guy that was calling the tractor pull because he kept going, "Woo, holy smokers!" And Chris kept doing that over and over, and we're like, "Dude, you're the only guy here that's not white, first of all, so you better like watch your back a little bit and stop making fun of everybody." But yeah, that was, and then of course it got cut short because there was like a thunderstorm coming rolling up behind the band shell, and we couldn't even see it.
Oh wow, okay.
And so the sound, we're like, well, we could maybe play one more, and the sound guy's like, no, he's like, look, and so we looked, and like, I mean, it's coming right now. That was the quickest teardown. It was like a 5-minute teardown, and we just
everything
threw
literally
everything
thrown in the trailer.
Yeah.
Nice.
Terrible.
I remember Al getting clotheslined by the guy wire of the ramp door, and yeah, that was a nightmare.
That would be nice, that having that many people on all hands on deck for something like that.
Sarah just texted to remind us of the time that Chris was.
Chris was.
It was. Let's just say it was probably pretty late at night, and he got lost in Steve's package place.
Lost.
Which, if you've been there,
smallest liquor store in town.
It's not a large building.
No. Is that still there? Did they finally close that thing
I
down?
think it's closed.
Yes, we used to call it Steve's White Trash Package, and if that place was open, you knew that was that place is open all the time. It was legal to be open, so if it was last resort, that's where you
It
headed
was
to.
open longer than it was legal.
Yeah,
anytime.
I'm sure
I
it
bought
was.
beer there at 2:45 in the morning once, somehow. But yeah, Chris got lost in that liquor store. Couldn't find the door.
That was a real good night,
I
though.
don't remember if I was with him or not. But
Well, you couldn't find the door then either.
yeah. I remember that story though. What else did she text?
Oh, she said that the kid at King House who I paid to ask Chris if he was his dad.
What?
I don't remember that actually. I don't know if it was somebody else. I remember hearing the story, but I don't remember being involved.
No,
Maybe I
that story
blocked it
checks out 100%.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I don't even know if I was there, but that checks out.
It sounds like the kind of thing I would do.
He had one of the kids there ask Chris when he's his dad.
Was it an Asian kid?
It must have been.
Yeah, it must have been one of the servers' kids.
You brought
Oh,
up.
Deanne says it was Brad Reed.
Oh.
That makes sense.
You brought up.
He's as much of a jerk as me.
You
Maybe
brought
a
up
little bit
leisure
more.
laundry earlier, like kind of sideways, but the reason, like when I lived with him, we had laundry in the basement of our apartment building. We didn't use it. We would always go to leisure because they had like Medieval Madness. They had the South
Pinball.
Park pinball.
Yeah.
Like they had a steady rotation of like really good pinball tables.
Oh.
So it was like we can like do laundry in the basement and watch TV, or we can just pack up all our dirty clothes and go play pinball. Like that's
And you get it all done at once.
yeah, and then you just run 5 machines.
Because the one story that I have that I remember was I was playing in a metal band back in the day, 0 Hour, like someone pointed out earlier, and we were playing out at the Harwood Hideout, and Russ at that time wanted to bring some people out there to come watch doing all that, and I just remember you guys being there, and then like I don't remember if it's like first set or whatever, all of a sudden everyone was gone.
It's like we were there for like 3 tunes.
Yeah, and then I had to find out later that some racial type things were happening in the crowd that made people nervous, which it's not a great memory, but it's one that I don't know, it bothered me ever since that day that something like that happened at one of my shows. So
Well, I mean, it wasn't it didn't have anything to do with you.
yeah,
you know?
but still,
But it was the clientele, unfortunately. Yeah,
But
that was not a good
I
time.
was just so excited that you guys came out to watch, and I was just like, this is awesome.
Like thinking back, I'm really kind of surprised that he came with me.
Exactly.
Wasn't really his thing, you know. Actually, I think Tim came with me to that too.
Oh,
And I remember
yeah,
listening
you had a little
to
entourage.
we listened to the Jay-Z with the Roots record on the way up there, which was completely like we're going to a metal show.
That's a little opposite.
Fire.
Yes.
I don't know. It was a good time. We had a good time, except for that part.
Little incident.
Like I wanted to stay, they wanted to stay, but that guy didn't want Chris there, so we were like, Gotta go.
Stupid.
Yeah, not a Chris specific story, but you know, thinking about that time out at Zorba's. Which time? So we're out at Zorba's, and we're in the middle of the set, and I'm like, man, they're really running the hazer hard tonight. Like, it's smoky AF in there. And then I was like, I don't think their hazer's working right. Like, that doesn't smell good.
Actual smoke.
Yeah, there's like the actual smoke. What's going on? We get up, end of the set, and Feldy comes up to tell us that
we burned up 3 of the 4 18s.
Too much rock, one might ask? No, Russ says. Not enough rock. One survived.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's one of my favorite Facebook posts of Russ's of all time.
That only cost me $3,500.
The Madisons, may they R.I.P.
Right.
You made that up on the gig, though, the gig pay.
Yeah. Totally offset.
Oh, I bet.
It was all the gig pay I ever made in that band.
Yeah.
Just to buy new subs. It wasn't about
nobody.
that.
Yeah, nobody was in that band to make money. No, with 9 people getting paid.
Yeah.
No, it never was about. Like, it was just fun, man. Like, the most fun I've had playing ever, every time, you know, that I played. It was just such a great time being on a stage with great musicians, playing just fun music. That was the thing. Like, Deanne might argue that a couple of songs sucked, but you know,
Deanne.
yeah, come on, Deanne, learn to love Sweet Home. But
Our 7-minute-long version of Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah, it could have been 3.5, might have been better. But just playing music that was fun, you know, we were having fun with it, having a good time, never taking ourselves too seriously, but also, you know, playing pretty damn well. You know, like, we played some horn charts that were legit, except for, you know, that spot in Brick House. You know, I played most of it.
Turns out sax players shouldn't be allowed to write trombone music.
At least not for me. Chris could have played it, but, you know, he moved over to bass, so gets what he gets.
There we go. And then we have Tanya says you guys should talk about the knife story. So I'm going to hold you off on that, and we're going to get to some little juvenile destruction. Now, this was the exact one that I played for Chris when Chris was on the podcast last July. So he was on July 13th. I believe he recorded a few days before that because I was out of town. But here was that week's Off the Roof. Oh, wrong one. No snow. Oh, that's right.
It's so rad.
What's my daughter throwing that up?
I was going to ask where you got this from, but you created it.
Yeah, it's his driveway.
That was perfect game, too. You're hired. That was the upstairs bathroom sink. We were doing a remod in there, and I'm just like, oh, this is gonna... I didn't expect it to just completely destroy like that, but I didn't expect my daughter to be able to throw it that hard either. So that was that one. That was beautiful. I'm not sure what Chris commented on there, but I'm sure he had a few things to say.
I remember I was watching it. He was very confused.
And those that don't understand what's going on there is that I grew up in this house. I bought it for my dad a million years ago, but then we'd have our raging parties, and it always inevitably someone was on the roof, and we're throwing random electronics off just to watch it explode on the driveway, because it was the 90s, and, you know, that's what we did. So just keeping that tradition alive, we're still destroying things off the roof. Now, granted, had a few issues going on here, so I've basically been recycling them for a while, but we'll get to some fresh ones here. I got a ton of stuff to break. And if you guys have anything out there that you want to see broken on the podcast, just contact us here at the Uptown Tonight Podcast at Gmail or whatever else, or throw it in my yard. I don't really care. We'll figure out a way to destroy it for you. So.
Easy now. You're going to get a yard full of just random trash.
That's all right. So let's talk about the knife story. What is this?
The
I'm
knife story
intrigued.
is the worst story ever.
The worst
It is
story
really
ever.
bad.
And-
Ed needs to tell this.
And
though.
like, so
Okay.
I sat through the knife story one
I
time,
sat through it.
and apparently he would tell this story every time he held a party, or
I
at least
probably heard the
annually.
story 20 times.
When
in
I
my
knew
life.
the knife story was coming out, that was my cue to go out for a smoke and and have like 4 or 5 in a row. 'Cause here's the nutshell version of the story. When he was a little kid, he went downstairs at his grandma's house, I think, and he found a butter knife, and he repeatedly hit himself in the head with it to the point where,
Like holding the blade and holding the
with
blade
the
and
handle
hitting,
of it.
so you would hit it. It's like the heavy end.
and ultimately,
I'm going to stop you right now and just ask, why would he bring up something like this?
because he thought it was such a good story, but it was stupid. Like
Yeah.
and like he would hold court. Like people would gather around, children, sit on the floor while I sit on my
It's
The
throne.
night before
time.
Christmas.
It's
for the
time
knife
for the
story.
knife story. And I'm like, oh,
It's time for
kill
the...
me. I sat through it once, and I'm like, ultimately his head swelled up, and they had to take him to the hospital.
His head got bigger.
What- right?
That's the explanation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was the genesis. Okay.
Apparently, but it was just
Oh.
it was the worst story ever. And like he would be like, gather around, everyone, it's time for me to tell you the knife story. And like I apparently people who had heard it before thought it was good, and they'd keep showing up for it, or maybe he got new victims every time.
What he
I don't
had
know.
onto it, or is it just...
I don't know.
Oh,
I
wait,
sat
he
through
went
it
out for the
once,
smokes.
and I was like, I'm done.
That's really it. Like he just hit himself in the head with a butter knife.
Yeah, that was the worst.
It's like I don't know. It's super
That's
weird.
part of his humor, I'm sure, yeah.
Oh my God, his humor. Yeah. Very
Yeah.
dark, very deadpan, very just understated most of the time.
Oh, Sarah just fills in a little gap. He had a permanent dent in his head, and he didn't realize it until they shaved his head at basic training.
Oh,
Interesting. Okay.
well, I've
Apparently
seen
Is
I
that
didn't
from the
even
knife
make it-
story? Is that what this
Yeah.
all derives from?
Yeah,
didn't even
apparently
make it.
I didn't make it to the end of the
Yeah.
first time either. So he loved telling
Thank you,
that story.
Sarah.
But yeah,
No, the dark humor, though. How far did that go?
Oh,
Again, the
all
size.
the way.
Sarah, text us and tell me if I can share what you said yesterday. That's just what it'll give you an idea.
Oh, we gotta get some permission.
oh, I'm sure we have permission. Sarah shared this at the funeral on Monday, that he wanted to be propped up in the casket with his arms out like that, so that he could give everybody a hug one more time, or everybody could come by and give him one last hug. And I mean, he had so much gallows humor, and just like
self-deprecating.
His tension breaker, Eddie even shared it. You shared it in your eulogy. Like his tension breaker, if you're sitting around there, it was, for me, it was one of two things, maybe one of three things. Like, so, what's up? That was first on deck. Second would be, so you want to punch me in the face? And sometimes it would be, so you want to watch me punch myself in the face? Like, is if there was just ever an awkward pause in the conversation, like that would come.
He's done that in the church band a few times to the bass player Jay. Jay, if you're watching, I know he'd done that, and I just like couldn't figure out where that was coming from. I was like, do you guys have a love-hate relationship? I couldn't figure it out.
That's a lot of Chris's relationships, Ed and Chris, for sure.
There were a lot of times that, like, I would bring somebody that he didn't know to hang out, Side Street or Lowerman's or whatever, and like our whole group, if we were with him, like a lot of our humor was ripping on Chris, but and
Chris.
it all comes from him, because he would do it.
Yeah, he started it.
So, but like the new person in the group would just be like terrified and like, you guys are so mean to him.
Yeah.
But then 5 minutes later, he would tell like some horrible, like racist joke about Asians, right? And like,
Chris.
and but like in a self-deprecating way, right?
Yeah.
Like that was his whole thing. And then the other person would be like, "Oh, you just it's just he just had a really dark sense of humor about a lot of things.
So to give you an idea of how dark, I know that Chris would have said the same thing. We're sitting at the burial yesterday, and they've done the 21 gun salute. They've come in and presented the shells and the stuff to Sarah, and now they take him out and they're going to load him into the vault and then drive him over and place him in the ground.
Yes.
And so we're standing around. There's people sniffling in back. It's kind of a somber moment. Some people are sad, and Christopher would have said this himself. Sarah just says, I just wish those guys were wearing Twins and Broncos shirts so they could let them down one last time. I lost it. Like,
Yeah, it was.
It's silent other than the sniffling and then me belly laughing
Yeah.
just about falling on the ground.
And everybody's like, why is he laughing?
Everybody around Sarah is laughing hysterically, and like everybody 10 feet away who didn't hear it is like, what is wrong with him? That's exactly what Chris would have said in the same situation.
That's how, one of those ways that I knew that like Chris had found the right person was with that humor match. Like that was so perfect. Such a perfect union of comedy.
It is. It's just kind of still a travesty. It's like 80 days married. And
Yeah,
I don't know, that kind of threw me right there.
I've known Chris the majority of my life, and Chris there was always this like feel of being uncomfortable. Like he was never quite settled. He was looking for something, and I feel like maybe some of that self-deprecating humor came from that. I don't know. Maybe Russ is saying yeah. But that wedding day, like I've never seen him look like that at peace. Like he knew, like he had arrived. Like he found what he was looking for. And when he sang Crazy Love, for the first song to Sarah on their first dance, like the look in his eye, like I've known him my entire life and I've never seen Chris look like that. And it might have only been 80 days, but you know what? I'm so grateful that my friend got to have that because I've never seen someone look like that, like he did, that transformation. And I'm just so grateful that I got to be a small part of it up on stage,
That's awesome. Oh, it is. I didn't even realize he got married until the week after. I'm like, oh, I might have been invited and everything else. I'm a recluse. I like hiding at the house, but I don't know. That's just how it kind of surpassed me on that part. Just admitting it on the internet,
It's all right. Admitting it's the first step.
It is. It is. All right. So, do you have any closing comments we might want to have here, or is anyone out there on listening in have anything that you want us to discuss about? Leave out here. Everyone gets all quiet. No. So I know he's going to leave a huge, huge void from just everyone that he's touched and everything else that's ever happened out here. I mean, we were just at the church just figuring out how many hats that guy was wearing.
Oh man.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was the whole thing, is that how do you find someone who's that talented who can still organize and who can still do all the number stuff and just keep everyone going
And not be on the periphery. Like
exactly.
If he was involved, he was involved.
Yep.
He wasn't just like, hey guys, yeah, I'll come by and help you out, and shows up the last 7 seconds to put in one nail on the roof. Like, no, he would have been there, like, organizing, getting all the building material.
Precisely. Just, man.
I said it on Monday, and I guess it's kind of my closing thoughts on everything, is that he was at the center of all these different groups, and there's so many people that I know just because I knew him. And we're going to have to try really hard not to fall apart without him there to get us together and to reconnect, or to accidentally show up where he was and meet so-and-so who also accidentally showed up. I mean, we're going to have to, for me, it's going to be effort, because I never put in any effort. All I had to do was show up where Chris was, because it was on Facebook, you knew, and you're going to see some people that you hadn't seen in a while, or you're going to see your best people because they're going to be there too. And so without that to bring us together, I'm going to have to be reaching out. We're going to have to reach out to each other to stay connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like there was a long time for me in this town where pretty much everybody I knew, every musician I knew at least, I knew because of him. And like so many great friendships now that I like thinking back, I'm like, where did I meet this person? And it almost always comes back to him. So like pretty much anytime I'm out hanging out with anybody, it's because I knew Chris. So like Ed said, we're all going to need to work, and it's going to be work, but we need to do it, and we owe it to him to do it, to maintain those relationships that he was responsible for. So yeah, it's crazy to think about how it's come so naturally to him, or maybe it wasn't, I don't know, but he was the instigator of all of that for forever. And now we have to figure out how to keep it going.
100%, like almost the majority of the people that I know today in Fargo, I know because I ran into Chris at Fort Knox. Like I had a few friends here and there, they're outside that circle, but the vast majority of the people I know are because I ran into Chris and he said, "Hey, what's up? You still playing trombone?" I think the key takeaway for me is that Chris loved fiercely, and that applied to his friends, and he was fully committed in his relationships. Like he was present when he was with you. He wasn't just like sitting with you while he's on Facebook the whole time, and then at the end of the night, "Hey, it was good to see you." No, he was involved. He was fully present. And as my takeaway, just with what Ed was saying, is like we need to reach out. We need to make contact with each other, but then we need to be present when we're there for the people that we're with. That's really something that was a really big impression on me now that I've had some chance to think about it.
Yeah, so all I can say is that maybe he was the guy that showed all of us like how life can be and what it should be like.
Yeah. And
just need to step up to it. So thank you, Chris. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
All right. Any last comments?
No. Sarah, we love you.
Love you, Sarah. Hug your friends.
Yes, please do.
Every time.
All right. Well, not really sure how to close all this up other than that. Thank you guys for coming on out and doing all this, and at least we got at least some really good chat about Chris, and now it's nice and documented here. So thank you for doing that. And then
drink a Steiner and play some real big fish.
That's right.
Really, really loud.
Okay. So remember, if your drummer's got more charisma than your front man, your band may be in trouble. But that's why my band's doing just fine. So until next time.
It's just a little baby turtle. Look at him go.